we live in a world where we create megatons and megatons of data every second, and we don't know where it's going, and we actually don't care. We only care about it when it breaks down, when something goes wrong, and then everybody is like, oh my god, iCloud can be hacked, so oh my god, I didn't know that. And you're like, really? If your password is called password123, you shouldn't be surprised.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. It's very early in the morning, just before the conference.
Yeah.
I just figured out the shower heads and everything, how that worked out, and we talked about the UX of showers already.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah, it's always fascinating how we're knowing how to program things, but when it comes to different levers and buttons, we're always like, what the hell is going on? It's trickier than we thought it would be. But yeah, works out in the end. It's quite a good idiom for software development, because a lot of these things get extended. They were just normal tap going into the bath, and then the shower head came extra, and then the extra shower head came on.
Yeah.
And then it became the same way we had only cold water and then hot water. That's why in England we always have two taps.
Yeah.
Because they're different water pipes, that one of them is heated and the other one isn't. Which is then you burn your hand, then you heal it again, and then you burn it and you heal it again. Which is like installing this library and using it, burning yourself with it, uninstalling it, using the next library kind of thing.
I use that metaphor for why TDD makes sense, because when you are doing TDD, when you write the test, then you are actually thinking with the head of the user and not with the head of the implementer.
Yeah.
And that happens with the taps, right? When you are thinking with the head of the mechanic that creates this. He says, okay, I have a pipe for hot water and a pipe for cold water. I just want to be able to close each of them, right?
Yeah, and also a preset thing. Like, I mean, does it start from the hot? Does it start from the cold?
Yeah.
Like, that's some people want to start from the hot, other people want to get into the hot, so you're always like wondering. And then there's always the granularity as well. Like, you're like, okay, I just do one little notch and out of a sudden I'm burned.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, okay, I'm using this extra piece of software, or I'm using this extra build script that makes my life so much easier, and out of a sudden you made it so much more complex for anybody to take that project off from you and maintain it, because you actually assume them to work like you. It's a great example. TDD is like, the people who write the code should probably not the people writing the tests.
No, I'm actually not convinced about that. I really think that just by making you write the test first is enough to get you in the mindset that this is going to be used by someone.
But to have a proper, I mean, we're lazy as developers. We would never write the tests that break our things. Whereas like a good QA person is there to actually challenge you and to come up with the solutions or come up with the edge cases that you never thought of. It's like, it's the old joke where it's like a QA engineer goes into a bar, orders a beer, orders 5 beer, orders minus 10 beers, orders a lizard. Because this is what QA people should do. Like things should be tested for breakage, not only for like, okay, all my tests are working, great, I've done TDD. Whereas like, that's not the way to do these kind of things. The same way when we talk about like, we're both going to talk about deep learning and artificial intelligence at this event. It's like a lot of people just take a minor set of data and then are very excited how fast their model learns. And because the data coming in is already so clean that you don't need to think about it, and you don't need to go through many iterations to get good results, and that doesn't help anybody in the long run.
Yeah, that's true. And what is your talk going to be about?
I'm talking about how we have all these different APIs available to us that are deep learning APIs, and not only get the outcome of them, but also allow our own data to go in them and do the training with a graphical interface, these kind of things. So instead of people thinking that machine learning has to be something that you have to learn from scratch, a lot of the information that we have is available as very simple to use APIs, and we should use them to build more human, cleverer interfaces. You
Yeah.
know, allow humans to do human things, to use our things, and not know the right keywords to do a search, for example. A search should allow for natural language processing to allow you to write a full sentence in there, and the search should do the clever things in the background using an API like that. So my main point about this is that right now machine learning is the big thing, and everybody talks about like how only a few companies have the power over it. We should bring it back to the normal thing, to the normal interfaces that people use day to day.
Okay.
Our day-to-day usage interfaces are not intelligent at the moment, and most of the time it's because people think it's too hard to do it, and it's not. It's actually REST APIs giving you the extra information that you need, and we should embellish our interfaces that way rather than having to. People having to use machines or use a certain closed environment just to get that functionality. Case in point, everybody talks about Siri and Cortana and chatbots, and these are great things, but they should not be the only ones that allow for natural language processing. These are the hardcore interfaces that actually get kind of boring after a while. I know everybody used Siri when it came out, but most of the time I see people using Siri, it says like set an alarm for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
This is what they're using it for.
That's exactly what I do.
And my main point about it is that the babies are the bathwater with everything that we're doing right now, because we, for 10, 12 years, we have these phones that spied on us, that did recordings of us, that every photo that we uploaded somewhere on the cloud got analyzed, went through a deep learning algorithm, and something got done with it. But we don't have access to that information. Now, for us as developers, it should be the right time to demand access to that information. So not only a few people making up a story about you from your data, but people getting insight of what data was gathered and what kind of information comes out of it. People complain that ads are not working because they're getting ads shown that don't work for them. So getting insight of what an ad network thinks that I am would help with that. You know, I mean, I don't mind ads as long as they don't spy on me, and as long as they don't actually download or mine Bitcoin on my machine. I'm happy to buy things if they're actually relevant to me, but if ads only disrupt what we're doing, then our whole business model of the web is broken. We gotta do better than that.
Yeah,
and
I
even
agree.
Even people who do it amazingly well. Amazon is just incredible in their machine learning. And I just bought a suitcase on Amazon, and it's got a lifetime guarantee.
Yeah.
So okay, what does Amazon do? It shows me ads for more suitcases. That makes no sense. Like, it has a lifetime guarantee. If the thing breaks, I get it replaced. I don't need another suitcase. I'm happy with the one that I have. Offer me things that add to my suitcase, or offer me things that make it easier to use my suitcase, but not another suitcase. Our ads should be cleverer than that. We're spying on people all the time with all the software that people are doing, but we're not using the information for the benefit of the end user. We're using it basically to show more random stuff that pays more. It's an interesting one to say though, because like this is the most obvious thing, but so many times we get too excited about technical innovation and we want to do new cool stuff rather than understanding what people really want, what people really come for. And that's where, again, UX and user research comes in, I think. And a lot of times it needs to be... I love, for example, that we're having the emotion recognition in video and audio and images. So when you do, for example, a test of a website, you have a camera on, like this one right now. And instead, in addition to what the interviewer asks people, what they think of it, we also have the facial expressions. And we know how many times they just tried to please the interviewer, or they actually were confused about an interface.
Okay.
So doing emotion recognition in user testing while they're actually working with your system is a very, very powerful tool to get this extra information, and it's very honest information as well.
Yeah.
Because it's when we as humans try to lie or try to say like, I know this, and our body language basically tells no, you don't.
Yeah.
Then we know it's like, it's not that we discover people lying, but it actually means our interfaces should be better because they're confusing people. They just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I actually had an interesting discussion a few weeks back with one of the cab drivers in Budapest, and we have this app called Taxify. It's like Uber, just for taxis, right?
Like My Taxi.
Yeah. And the thing is that he was when I told him that I was teaching a workshop about continuous deployment, and I taught him what continuous deployment was. He just lost his mind because he said, "Oh, that's the thing that I hate the most. They update everything and everything changes all the time, and I can't figure out what's where because they put it to some other place that I'm not used to." So he was really upset about the whole concept of continuous deployment. And he also said that, okay, I would be really happy about people fixing stuff, but no one ever asked me if I liked it.
Yes.
And that's actually true in some cases. But the thing is that if you ask people if they like things, they just say yes most of the time because they want to be polite. And that's actually a real problem, that you actually have to figure out what people really think about things, and even just figure out what makes more money, even if it's not super convenient for the user.
Well, it's like the hoarding mentality as well. Like, oh yeah, do you want this new feature? Sure, I can use more features.
Yeah.
If the feature makes sense or not doesn't matter at the beginning. We just don't use it later on.
Yeah.
Like when Twitter came out, it was a great messaging platform just for 140 characters, and out of a sudden it became a video platform and an image platform and an audio platform, and like you can have groups and all kind of stuff, and everything always becomes like we have to keep innovating and putting new features into our system, and then these systems become too complex and the next one comes to take over and say like, we're much more lightweight than the other one because we don't have all these features until next month when we get these features again. And that's where machine learning can come in quite nicely, because it can do a lot of these things in the background for you.
Yeah.
And for example, Slack is a great example where the Slack bots analyze what's going on in your text and then give you buttons and functionality and shortcuts depending on what you've been writing, rather than just like, here's a new feature, do you like it? Maybe. Do an A/B test. You don't need to do it because you give the functionality according to what the user did with your interface.
Yeah.
And that's a very clever way of doing it, I think. Yeah, people like to say yes to a lot of things because they don't want to be seen to be falling behind as well.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest problem when he said he hates things being up to date all the time, like in terms of security, we have to be up to date all the time.
Yeah.
And I hate when a certain company or other companies keeps talking about that something just works magically. I think it's dangerous the way we've separated ourselves from our computers and from the things that we're using. We're not even expecting to be able to repair them anymore or know what's going on in them.
Yeah, that's something that we actually discussed last night over a beer.
Yeah.
That whenever something breaks in your laptop or your phone, you just end up being with a replacement eventually, because they don't even try fixing it anymore.
Well, even worse, people don't question things. I mean, if I said that in a talk before, if 10 years ago I would have come to you and said like, hey, can I put a microphone in your house that records everything that's going on? You'd be saying no. And then I would say like, yeah, what if it tells you the weather? Okay, cool, then put the microphone in my house. Like, we put these cameras and recording devices, and we carry these mobile phones with us that record everything we do, but we don't even question where the data goes, and we have no insight into it for the sake of having convenience. And I have no Alexa at home. I'm hardly using the voice recognition on that thing, because if I want to know the weather, it's not that hard to type in weather.com. You know, but I'm old school, so probably people who are growing up with these machines right now just expect computers to be everywhere, and you just talk to them and you get the information back. It's like Star Trek used to be in 1993 when we watched it on television. We have this now, and we're still not happy. It always cracks me up when people go like, oh, I don't mind. I mean, I've got nothing to hide, and if you got nothing to hide, the government should be getting all the information from you. And I'm like, well, that would work if they were not inept about it. You know, if I'm worried about bits of my information being put together in the wrong way and then making up a horrible story that I have to defend myself against. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about people having all the information and knowing what to do with it. But if you look at the track record of governments losing information and governments falling for false news, fake news accounts as well. Yeah. They're also human, you know. Like there's like I don't trust anybody with all my information except for myself. Yeah, but and even myself I don't trust.
Yeah, but that comes down to the fact that right now we are highly connected, right? So it's not like a few dozen people knowing about your stuff anymore. It's about the whole world knowing about your stuff. And then when you have the whole world, it gets really difficult to go after the people who are hurting you, right?
It was interesting when when I talked to him about security at NDC. It's like his whole idea, and I'm agreeing with it, is like we have to teach people not to give away privacy for free. We actually the out of the box interaction of people is like I put everything on the web and people do something with it. I'm totally okay if my phone tracks my location all the time, unless somebody starts to stalk me and wants to kill me. Then out of a sudden it becomes less useful that my phone knows where I am all the time.
Yeah.
So the preset of people giving away information without thinking about it is something we need to fight. We need to make people aware that their information is worth a lot of money and also worth a lot of danger for them. So they need to actually understand that it makes no sense to upload your photos with your GPS data intact, for example.
Yeah.
So there's a big problem that no matter what we do in security, people are happily giving things away. You don't even have to crack or to do social engineering nowadays. People do it for free anyways, as long as you say, hey, our app is free if you give us all the data.
Yeah. But that's actually really hard, because even if you try to be responsible yourself and tell the user, hey, I'm going to use your data. This is the data I'm going to take from you, and you have to be conscious about that. Either of two things going to happen. One, you scare away your users because they're not used to being informed about that, right? And then suddenly it becomes scary, or they become aware of this for your application, but not for your competitors, who might actually be using that data in a less responsible way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I worked for Mozilla, there was always the problem. Firefox always tried to be very, very adamant about, like, we don't take your information, we do this, you have to opt in for everything that's going on. And people didn't like it because they don't like opting in. They just, why don't you let me opt out? And I think opt out is such a cop-out in terms of safety, in terms of not being sued.
Okay.
Like companies telling me, like, well, yeah, we record everything, but there is a menu where you can untick the things. Nobody finds this. Nobody reads terms and conditions. So it's always like, oh, they could have turned it off. And you're like, well, no, you didn't make it obvious to them that that's even being recorded. But if you tell people what you record, then they get freaked out by and use the one that seems to be easier.
Yeah.
So it's a real issue that we live in a world where we create megatons and megatons of data every second, and we don't know where it's going, and we actually don't care. We only care about it when it breaks down, when something goes wrong, and then everybody is like, oh my god, iCloud can be hacked, so oh my god, I didn't know that. And you're like, really? If your password is called password123, you shouldn't be surprised. You know, it's
I mean, it's actually, for passwords, it's even simple, because you just have to use a service like LastPass, right? And
well, I mean, I'm using the Intel one at the moment, and I'm still worried about this, because I mean, all these, like, well, I mean, if they don't store my data, then fine. But the ones that store your data, all you have to do is hack that system, and you got access to everything.
That's true.
It's a single point of failure kind of opportunity. We have to get rid of passwords. Period. I mean, we have biometric information, we have systems like this phone knows who I am. Why do I have to put another password and login and username for your service in there as well?
Yeah.
99% of the time it's just because you want to keep the tracking and you want a database of emails that you can sell to clients. It's not a matter of like, oh, we keep your extra security by putting another login in there. There is ways from every operating system to get the identity of the user or get a verified token that this is this user. Yeah. But everybody puts their own interfaces in it, and that teaches people a lot of bad practices. I love these, like, oh, your password isn't strong enough, but it doesn't tell me what the rules are.
Yeah, that can be really annoying.
Like, just don't tell me, like, this is to reload, like, and especially when you have these, when every browser asks you if you want to save your login, and it does it on the page where you entered your password wrong. Like, oh, you just entered the wrong password. Do you want to save this? And you're like, no, it's the wrong password. Don't ask me to save that. Only ask me to save after there was a successful login.
Yeah.
And we talked about this the other day on Twitter, like, how do you do this? We could do it with a 200OK HTTP header, and only then trigger the browser saving thing. But it's interesting how these simple interfaces can really be in your way, because once you save the wrong login, it autofills it for you all the time as well.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how technology is in our life as a ubiquitous thing, but we don't take ownership over it anymore. We don't want to understand it. We just hope it's there, and it pains me every time I talk to people who are not working in IT, and they look at us as gods. They're like, oh my God, you know this, you know how computers work, that's amazing. And I'm like, this is 2017, we had computers for 50 years? Like, why is this still such a thing? Why are people still afraid of technology? Why are they still thinking of this something as, I'm too stupid for that, I don't want to understand it? I think we failed in educating people on basic understanding what machines and computers do.
Yeah, but even if you think about deep learning, when I talk to developers about deep learning, and when I tell them that, okay, I've been playing around with deep learning, I've been doing this for a year, I can actually build like basic stuff and not so basic stuff, and when I tell that to even programmers, they're like, oh, you're a god, because developers don't have experience with deep learning, and what you don't understand, you fear. And that's natural to fear something that you don't understand, right?
It's also a new buzzword. I mean, a lot of companies make like deep learning or machine learning this like magical thing, like, oh God, we're a startup in the Silicon Valley, we do deep learning. Please give us VC money. We don't tell you what we're doing, but basically this is the cool new thing to do, much like we do microservices was before, or we do service, software as a service, we do like PaaS, we use cloud. Like we always do this, like, and then the press runs with it. They're like, oh my God, look what IBM Watson can do. It can predict cancer before you get it.
And actually, while we are at IBM Watson, I am really annoyed by the way IBM goes around with this, because they like to paint this picture that IBM Watson is like a single really strong AI piece of software, but in reality it's just a set of simple deep learning models, and not even all of them are deep learning, they are just different machine learning models as a suite, but it's not like something that works out of the box, and not like something that understands the problems that you have.
Yeah, I mean, but none of them do, and if they do, they're gonna have horrible results, because they're gonna cut corners trying to understand things. So, but this is how marketing works. I mean, you can't fault IBM. I think a lot of the hype about IBM, especially after it's been on Jeopardy, was also not their making. That's the same thing when we in Microsoft do something and the press praises us over the moon about what we're doing, and we're sitting like, no, that we don't do that at all. This is not. I mean, you've probably been in project management meetings where your project manager promised the client everything, when you were sitting next to it and you're like, we don't do that. I don't even know what that is. No, we don't do anti-gravity belts in PHP. But I think they were the first ones to go big on the marketing front about it, and that's why a lot of people think like Watson is this like all thinking computer or robot thing out there that makes everything automatically. And Google does the same with their Go stuff now. The DeepMind now having a new Go algorithm this morning that actually beat the other one 10 times already. And I find these very intelligent, very interesting research things, but a lot of times they're overkill in what they want to do, and they're also kind of scary. I like the Facebook one where they had the two robots starting to talk to each other in their own language that humans couldn't understand anymore.
Yeah, and then when you actually look into the article, it turns out that it's nothing scary. It's just the way it was designed, and it's the reason they stopped it. It wasn't because it was scary. The reason they stopped it was because it didn't work well.
Yeah.
So actually, I think one of the so here is what I give fault to IBM is calling their suite Watson. Yeah. Because they personified it.
Yeah.
And that is a huge mistake, I think,
Well,
because
Siri, Cortana.
yeah, but they were the ones who started this trend, and here's the thing:
Apple Newton.
even calling deep learning an artificial intelligence is, I think, misleading at some level.
Well, artificial intelligence is the old, 80-year-old umbrella term
but
for everything.
in the 60s, artificial intelligence was just a computer. It wasn't like today. When they talked about artificial intelligence, it wasn't even a machine learning. And then in the 70s, it becomes like a surrogate term for machine learning. And then in the 2000s, it becomes a surrogate term for deep learning. And every time we do that, people start being afraid that, oh my God, the singularity is coming. And yes, the singularity is coming. It will come at some point. But what I feel where it's misleading is that people seem to think that deep learning is like the ultimate solution. We just have to wait a bit until it gets better. But in reality, deep learning is all about giving a model to a system, and then that system can figure out how to use that model to solve a problem. But it isn't able to create a model of the real world by itself.
It does repetition and it does analysis, but it doesn't do innovation, and it doesn't do creativity. I'm having this in my talk where I talk about we just play a lot of Trivial Pursuit. And a lot of these questions, I still have no idea what these questions mean, but I learned the answers by heart. And this is what computers do as well.
Yeah.
They don't do the like, I remember this by comparing it with something else, because then it makes more sense to me.
I mean, metaphors is something that never works with AIs, right? I mean, with deep learning stuff. So I think there is a vital piece missing for the singularity. I do think that deep learning will have a role in creating the singularity. But if you ask me if the singularity is around the corner, I don't think so. Not yet.
No, and I also think that we don't understand that deep learning is just yet another tool to make our life easier. It's really good at spotting mistakes in repetitive tasks where humans are terrible. I mean, we talk about automation and like machines that create things like drilling machines and stuff, monitoring themselves. This is a good thing. Humans should not do the same job over and over and over again, because as soon as we do it, we get bored, and when we get bored, we make mistakes. And when we make mistakes in a factory, people die.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
If robots get break because they actually get tired of or they have a problem in their programming, fine. But if humans get die because they just had to do boring repetitive tasks, this is what computers are better at.
Yeah,
we said about yesterday as well when we talked about automation. It's like it's gonna kill a lot of jobs, and a lot of these jobs are due to killing. They're ready to be gone.
And they should be gone.
Yeah,
I mean,
humans should do those.
Anything that is repetitive should be gone. Yeah. But the problem is that is everyone as a person able to work in an industry that requires creativity? So my main problem is that a lot of these folks who are working in repetitive jobs, they don't want to learn how to do creative stuff because they are already rooted in their old ways, and they want their old jobs back.
Let's face it though, those people have been told their whole life that they're too stupid to do anything else.
That's true, yeah.
So if we had a universal income, if you didn't have to work to live, and I'm 100% sure that a lot of these people would find creativity in themselves that they never thought of before. Because they would feel secure in their thinking that they actually have time to find out something new about themselves. My father and my brother have the same DNA as me. One of them is a fireman, the other one was a coal miner and then a factory worker. My brother keeps saying to me when I show him the computer stuff that I'm doing that he's too stupid for that and he will never understand it, because his whole life he's been told this is the case. So if he didn't have to do the job just to survive, he probably would find a potential of creativity in himself that we hadn't thought of. And this is where the new jobs that we need to create by 2020 will come from that by giving people the freedom to innovate and giving people the freedom to think about themselves as something more than just somebody who does a stupid task that a computer can do better.
Yeah.
But that means that we, as the people who employ other people and governments, have to stop being greedy. The money we can save...
have to stop being greedy, and we have to understand that the capitalist model is due to break down because of the new technologies.
Well, not even that. I mean, 1% of the money is 90% of the money is in 1% of the population.
Yeah,
that already shows that's a broken system.
Yeah, and part of the reason that happens is because we have all this technology that enables you to just concentrate all the wealth in one point by just making things more effective at large scale, right? So whenever someone becomes a tiny bit bigger fish than everyone else, then they have this economy of scale that is beyond imagination. This is unprecedented in history to have that kind of economy of scale that we have today.
Well, also
especially with technology.
The necessity isn't there. The amount of people that have more money than they would ever need in their life. It's like, I mean, the Markov pyramid has been fulfilled. You don't need more. You can start sharing, you can start giving things away. And I mean, I do it not with money because I'm not rich, but I do it with everything I do. Everything I do is open source, everything I write is Creative Commons. People can do whatever they want with it and take it away and run with it and learn from it. And I do it because of selfish reasons, because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, my intellectual efforts live on. Yeah. Because somebody else takes them away from me and does something else with it. It was very interesting. I just saw this talk about the death of Flash gaming, and it was very insightful for me as an open source web guy that like the Flash community from the very beginning was all about like sharing and working with each other and doing creative things together, but it was always defined as making money as well. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a very sensible thing to think about. Far too many things we do on the web are free because something horrible happens to our users with ads and being tracked and all these kind of things there. So that it's a dirty thing to think you should make money with what you're doing is a very big failure of our market right now. We believed in the 2000 with the first .com boom that free money comes from everywhere as soon as you write software. This is not the case. It's like we have to understand that we're burning somebody else's money and we're not bringing it back to the community. There's a few great books on that one right now, how we actually we made a whole new factory work environment, which is the highly paid developers that we are. We should be happy, but we're not, because we're not appreciated for what we do. We're just appreciated for what we release, and other people do it. Like 90% of the money in IT companies goes to the CEO, and the rest gets distributed more or less evenly. Yeah. And this is not right either. This is not the way this should work.
It's not really just the CEO, right? Because the CEO is also getting paid some amount of money, but he also owns the company and controls that wealth.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the right person. But in terms of like in VC funded companies, that's a given that the money should go only to the upper management, and the developers are basically you can remove them nilly-willy every month and nothing would change. We always try to say like, oh, at conferences we give these talks about like how to make sure your code lives for the next 50 years. Nobody wants this any longer. Nobody cares about that anymore. It's just like who's the first to market is the one that wins. And that's a very, very dangerous and unmaintainable way we're working right now. This is and that's how security holes happen. That's now unmaintainable systems. That's how people put their efforts and creating a nice profile and maintaining it and uploading lots of pictures and tagging them, and then the company goes bust and all their stuff gets away, and like, well, it was free. What did you think? You have the right to keep your stuff?
Yeah, there was I don't remember where this quote came from, but someone said that it's kind of sad that the smartest people in our generation are just working on making people click on certain links. right? Because everything that we do as web developers, or most of it, comes down to making the user click on an advert.
I think that's also outdated. I mean, the really scary thing is the people that do the social algorithm and also deep learning algorithms on people's data that keep people using the system no matter what.
Yeah.
Like we only live on numbers. Like how many updates were in that thing? How many interactions did you do? There's kids that actually in Snapchat they have to keep a cadence up. They have to do like 50 snaps a day or something to get another badge. And when they go on holiday, they give their Snapchat login to friends of theirs, so they keep their Snapchat alive while they're gone.
Oh, good.
This is like a Tamagotchi, but with ads.
Yeah.
This is terrible. This is like we become a slave to the updates, and we become, and that's why depression is on the rise and these things as well, because people make up a social persona, an online persona that doesn't exist, but then they actually get depressed because their real life is not as great as the life that they made up of themselves online.
Yeah.
I gave a TED talk about this 2 years ago in Linz. About like how make social media social again, and it's this rat race that you have to get out of. Like people make themselves look much better online than they are, and then they get depressed because they're not that person that they just invented.
And they get depressed because they think that the other people are the people they show themselves to.
Okay, yeah, because everybody's just faking to each other.
Yeah, and when you try to live up to the standard that was set by someone faking something better than they actually have, that's kind of difficult, right?
Yeah, but the whole system is rigged that way because it's all about constant updates and constant new features, and that's kind of sad. And the great thing, I mean, I saw the keynote. I saw them rehearsing the keynote yesterday. There's gonna be percussion using computers now, so they're gonna play on like monitors and keyboards and stuff. So this is gonna be good now.
Yeah, I'm gonna looking forward to that. Okay, well, thank you for being here. I really enjoyed the discussion.
You're welcome.
Okay, goodbye.
See you soon.
See you. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope it earned your subscription. But while you're here, let me show you something. The people behind me are playing a game called Lean Poker. It's a fun and exciting way to learn how you can deliver value much faster than you have ever imagined. It's exciting. The link is in the description. Check it out if you want to support this channel.